Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Lenox College Radio Theater. We appreciate your patronage. Before we start the show, there's a few things I'd like to say, basically on the subject of radio. In 1944, there was a little boy south of Mount Vernon living on a farm, and he had a life of doing chores in school. And after that homework, after supper was done, and if they were good, him and his brother and his parents, they would be allowed to sit around the living room, radio by the way, and listen to some of the comedy shows, the drama shows, the mystery shows. In the 20s, 30s, and 40s, radio was it. There was no TV back then, there were no cell phones back then. Everybody had party lines, and very few people had newspapers. So you received news from the radio, you received your entertainment from the radio for a few hours every night for every week of the night. That radio right here is one of the radios that little boy actually listened to, and that little boy was my father. And he told me many stories about listening to that exact radio show. And many of the people in the households all over the United States were doing very similar things at that point. Radio shows were, for the most part, in New York City. They were broadcast live with real live audiences. These were not pre-recorded, they were not taped. And they had stages much like we see here today. So what we'd like to do is just give you a chance to experience this and enjoy the show. One thing that we'd like to practice is an applause sign. So if you would indulge me. All right, now, all of us came from the farthest corners of Delaware County. Can we have one more and make it good this time? We would also like to have a big shout out to Salo's Sweet and Savory Catering Service for their wonderful meals. And without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to our show. If you have cell phones, please put them in mute or turn them off. Thank you. All up and down the country today, folks have been enjoying summer sunshine and outdoor activities. That means kids, pets, visitors trooping in and out of the house and getting mud, dirt, and grass stains on your nice kitchen floors and counters. But you can have a cleaner home this summer with Johnson's Wax. More about that later. Right now, on with the show. For non-professional writers, there are 3 different approaches to typewriting. Hunt and peck, poke and pray, and hope and hit. And here at 79 Wistful Vista, we find the head of the house combining the worst features of each as we meet Fibber, McGee, and Molly.
I can see why Remington makes guns as well as typewriters. If you can't type any better than I do, you can always shoot yourself. Okay, let's see what I got. One day in Africa, during a kangaroo trapping expedition...
McGee, have you got time to help me with... Oh, still at the typewriter, huh?
Yeah, for all the good it's doing. I'm writing my entry for a contest and it ain't going too good.
Oh, heavenly days, another contest. What is it this time?
I'm writing a story.
What kind of story?
A tall story.
Tall, huh?
Yep. Tall story contest at the Writers Club. $100 first prize. Entry's got to be in by 5 o'clock.
Well, you're a sure bet to win with all the yarns you spin. I think the only rival for tall stories is the Empire State Building.
Well, that's what all the guys at the Writers Club say too. And they've all got big bets on me to win.
Well, why not? You're a cinch. We've got you so far.
Okay. Tall story by Fibber, McGee. One day in Africa during a kangaroo trapping expedition.
Well, I don't think there are any kangaroos in Africa, but so far so good. Read the rest of it.
There isn't any rest of it. I can't think of a good yarn.
Oh, come on. You've got a million of them, dearie.
I have.
Yes? Well, how about the one you told the milkman just very this morning?
What do you mean?
Well, about how you used to drive a milk wagon and your horse was so smart, he not only knew all the customers by name, but used to read the newspapers to see if anybody had moved out of the neighborhood.
They don't want true stories.
And that was a true story?
Well, I maybe have exaggerated a little. I just can't come up with anything. I had a great start on this next one, but it fizzled out too.
Well, what was it?
It was about the time I flew a balloon over Mount Vesuvius while it was erupting.
Well, that sounds good. Why didn't you finish it?
Well, I couldn't. The balloon caught fire and I fell into the volcano.
Yeah, that put a damper on things, all right.
Gosh, I ought to be able to win this contest hands down. Hey, how about this? One day when I was deep sea fishing in Acapulco, how do you spell that?
I don't know. Why there?
Well, why not?
Well, make it Havana. It's closer and easier to spell.
Good idea. While deep sea fishing at Havana, Florida.
McGee, Havana's in Cuba.
It is. Since when?
Well, I don't know. Ask a cigar maker. Oh. Come in.
Hello, folks.
Hi, Junior.
Well, hello, Mr. Wilcox. How are things at Johnson's Wax?
Como están ustedes, amigos?
No thanks, Junior. Never touch the stuff.
No, McGee. I think that was, how are you in Spanish? Wasn't it, Mr. Wilcox?
Sure was. I picked up quite a bit of it when I was in Acapulco deep sea fishing.
Hey, how do you spell that?
Deepsea.
No. He means Acapulco.
Oh, well, I don't know. I never paid any attention to the spelling. You see, I was down there with a bunch of Johnson's Wax salesmen.
And I bet all you guys never talked shop on the whole trip, did you?
You bet. For 5 whole days, not a word was said about fishing. All we talked about was Johnson's Wax.
Yeah, I'll bet that's a hot topic in the tropics.
Oh, it is. We swapped experiences about how we sold way over our quota of Johnson's Wax, and how housewives loved it because it gave their homes that immaculate, shining appearance.
Well, that's fascinating.
And how it made housekeeping so much easier because dust and dirt just can't cling to a Johnson's Wax surface.
Yeah, I was deep sea fishing down in Acapulco once.
And how a proud housekeeper kept finding new uses for Johnson's Wax. Floors, furniture, woodwork, you name it.
We went trolling for tuna, you see. We were trolling for tuna, and I had about a half a mile of line on it.
That's quite a line in itself, McGee.
Well, sir, suddenly I got a bite. I scratches it quick, and then, like a flash, I reels it in. It was a terrific battle. But finally I reaches over the side with my gaff, and what do you suppose I caught?
Big tuna?
No.
A swordfish?
No.
An old tire?
Nope. A guy out swimming.
Did you toss him back in?
Nope. I yanked him on board and said, "I'm sorry, bud. I thought you were a tuna." And he says, "Oh, I am a tuna. I am a piano tuna."
That's a heck of a note, all right, McGee.
Well, I got to get going. I just stopped in to see how you were coming with your entry for the Writers Club Tall Story Contest.
Well, he's a little discouraged about it, Mr. Wilcox.
Yeah, I can't seem to think of a thing, Junior.
Keep pitching, Mr. McGee. Just remember, the deadline is 5 o'clock.
Oh yeah, I better get at it again. Molly, what am I gonna do? The deadline is 5 o'clock.
Well, you better come up with something.
Yeah, we could sure use that $100. Maybe if I just start typing something. Anything.
Well, that's the spirit, dearie. Well, now who's that? Come on in! Why, it's Abigail Uppington.
Working on a typewriter, Mr. McGee.
Who, me? Oh, no, Uppy. I'm teaching a sea lion to play the 1812 overture on a kazoo.
Oh, most amusing, Mr. McGee. skirt. I have just come from horseback ride in the park.
You quite an equestrian, Uppy?
Well, I rather fancy that I am, Mr. McGee. I've taken several blue ribbons at Madison Square Garden.
Really? Where'd you take them?
McGee, don't start.
I'll have you know, I cut quite a figure in the ring with my very fashionable attire. I had white boots, a silk riding ensemble, and a western hat designed exclusively for me by Lily Deshay.
Oh my, how wonderful!
Yes, very. As a matter of fact, when Roy Rogers had his last rodeo there, he made me a splendid offer on my outfit.
Oh my goodness, did he really, Abigail? What was his offer?
$15 for my hat. He said it frightened Trigger.
Good heavens. So what did you do?
Why, what else could I do? I kept the hat and canceled my membership to the Roy Rogers fan club. The idea.
I used to be quite a horseman myself, Uppy.
Really?
Here it comes.
20 years ago, I used to ride bareback in the circus. Funny thing happened in connection with that. Recently, too.
Really? Well, do tell.
So I happened to be in Indianapolis, and I was walking along the racetrack one day, and I seen two of the horses from my old circus act. Well, sir, the minute they saw me, they started rearing and snorting for joy. They tossed their heads and arched their necks and started galloping around the circle, round and round and round.
Speaking of going round and round in circles.
So, what does I do but kicks off my shoes and leaps onto their backs. And for 20 minutes we galloped around that circle, me jumping on and off, turning triple somersaults, handsprings, and flip-flops.
Well, after 20 years, I imagine a lot of your flips were flops, huh?
But I forgot I didn't have any rosin on my feet, and I slipped on one of their rumps and wham! Everything went black.
Oh dear. Were you knocked unconscious, Mr. McGee? I mean, more so than usual?
Only for a minute. Then I was back to my usual self.
And that tells you a lot right here.
Simply astounding, Mr. McGee. Sometime when you have a free hour, I should like to hear more of your circus stories.
Why, glad to, Uppy. Anytime.
Good. I do so enjoy listening to fairy tales. Well, ta-ta, my dears.
Well, how do you like that, Dave?
Oh, hey, why not use that, McGee?
Use what?
Use that circus story as your tall tale for the Writers Club contest.
Oh, good grief, kiddo, I can't do that.
Why not?
Why, those horses may still be alive. I wouldn't want to embarrass them.
Oh, I give up.
Boy, I don't know whether I can dream up any fantastic stories or not.
Well, now you'd better, McGee. If all those people at the Writers Club have bet big money on you, they're going...
That scares me too. Maybe I better get that. Oh, the ribbon's out. I'll need to change it. Now, where did we stash the extra ribbons?
I think they're on the top shelf in the closet.
What are they doing there?
That's where you put them last time, McGee. Open the door carefully, carefully, carefully. Oh, no.
Oops.
So, did you find the ribbon, dearie?
Oh, yeah. Right here under the, whatever it is.
Well, on the bright side, now you can change the ribbon.
Molly, I'm absolutely blank, and I'm getting a little scared.
Well, maybe you shouldn't have committed yourself. But I know you can do it. I've talked to Mrs. O'Reilly on the phone, and she said her husband told her that all the writers are betting their teeth on you.
Oh, no. What am I going to...
Sure. They say you're a 3-to-1 shot, or 3-to-1 to get shot, I forget which.
Well, doggone it, I can't think of any wild yarns. I sit here and stare at this blank paper, nothing flows.
Hello, Mrs. McGee. Am I interrupting your work, Mr. McGee?
Oh, not at all, Alice. I'm never bothered by minor disturbances.
Well, I'm not a minor disturbance, Mr. McGee.
Hmm?
I was 21 last October.
Oh.
Well, he's right trying to tell the story for the Elks Club contest, Alice.
Oh, creepers, isn't that wonderful? Well, he could even write a novel or a play or something sometime.
What do you mean I could write a play or a novel or something sometime? I got one almost finished right now. I'm calling it Life with My Father.
There's a play by that name, McGee, very successful too.
What? Life with My Father?
No, it's just called Life with Father.
Well, how do you like that? You think up an idea, somebody takes it, changes one word, and you got no legal protection whatsoever.
I think playwriting is horribly interesting. I go out once in a while with a fellow who thinks he's a playwright. He's kind of a Noel Coward.
He is, eh?
Yes, he'd like to write like Noel, but he's afraid that he'd never be able
I'll
to.
never forget one time in New York, the theater guild come to me and asked me to write a show for them.
I suppose Elmer Rice was busy at the time, being thrown at a wedding party.
I was kind of a Broadway playboy in them days, which is why they wanted me to write a Broadway play, I suppose.
Well, Natch.
They offered me $100,000 and a tryout in Washington, D.C.
Could that be called Cavalcade theory?
It would have if they'd ever seen it. I found out just in time they wanted the play to be called Alabama, so they could pay me in Confederate money. So I nixes the deal, see? And they get a kid named Hammerstein to do one called Oklahoma. I understand it's going to make expenses, too. And
Make expenses? They sell tickets for it in the jewelry stores.
Well, I'll let you get to work, Mr. McGee. I've got to go downtown anyway. I've got a luncheon date with Geraldine.
Who's Geraldine?
Oh, Geraldine is the mounted policeman that directs traffic at 14th and Oak Street on the Big Brown Horse's sister.
Oh, I see.
Well, good luck with it, Mr. McGee.
Well, what now? Come in. Oh, Dr. Gamble.
Thank you, Molly.
Hiya, Doc.
I just dropped by to see if you sent in your tall story for the contest yet.
No, I guess I kind of fell down on the assignment. I went into it real enthusiastic, too. I was going to whip out a yarn made to have all the other contestants green with ivy. I said,
Green with envy, dear?
what's that?
She's right, bud. People don't turn green with ivy.
Oh, no. You mean I never told you about the kid I went to school with, little Eddie Creeper? The poor kid that was working his way through school?
What about him? I'm afraid to ask.
Well, he didn't have much money, and he got so hungry, he'd eat the leaves off the vines on the chemistry building, just to keep from starving.
And he wasn't poisoned.
Must not have been, because he ate so many of them leaves, he started to turn green with ivy, you see?
Oh, Brother McGee.
I suppose you're going to tell us he came home one night all potted.
No, but the thing was, Doc, Creeper ate so many of them ivy leaves, he tried to climb the wall of the chemistry building. Every spring right after the rainy season, he'd start vining up the wall. We found out later his father was from Virginia.
Oh, here it comes.
Yep, he was one of the Virginia Creepers.
Is that the tall story tale you sent into the Writers Club?
No, he hasn't sent anything. He's got writer's block, Doctor.
I'll probably have to resign this club.
No way, McGee. I've got too much money on this to let you slide. Now get on with it. Concentrate.
But Doc, I'm in a spot. No kidding. I haven't been able to think of a thing. My imagination is drier than a Kansas saloon.
You better come up with something, bub, or I know 7 club members, including me, who will personally dunk you in a tub of ice cubes until you come up with something. I myself have wagered $65, 4 appendectomies, 2 adhesions, and a basal metabolism on you. Now get on with it.
Do what the doctor says, McGee. Concentrate.
Maybe he doesn't know how to concentrate.
Well, certainly I know how to concentrate. My gosh, I spent 6 years in India studying to be a faker, didn't I?
Yeah, and 40 more years in this country being a faker.
You betcha. I learned how to sit on a board full of nails all day long and just concentrate and never feel a twinge.
And what was the secret, whiz kid? Mind over matter or bulletproof seat of the pants?
Neither one, stethoscope. Just drive the nails into the board and flatten them out. It's only the points that hurt you.
Simple when you know the trick, isn't it?
Okay, funny, but McGee, do you know what time it is? 4:30. Now let's have that story.
Oh my gosh, Doc, I can't. Well, gee whiz, this simply isn't my...
Oh,
golly.
McGee, they're all depending on you.
Well, doggone it, I don't know what to do. Hey, wait a minute. Yeah, I do too. I know what to do.
Well, get it done quick, man.
Good for you, McGee.
I don't know why he leaves these things until the last minute anyhow.
Procrastination is his middle name.
Okay, Doc, there you go.
Thanks, bud. I knew you'd come through. I'll put this in the envelope and turn it in. Now listen to WVIS at 6:30 tonight. They'll announce the winner then.
Rats!
What are you looking so gloomy about, McGee? You came through with a tall tale, didn't you?
No, I didn't send the writers a story at all. I just sent my apologies. Told them I just couldn't handle it.
Oh, heavenly days. And all those people who bet on you, too.
I know. I feel like a dog.
Well, cheer up, Pet. My goodness. What you need is some fresh air to clear out the clouds. Come on outside.
Yeah, the great outdoors in summertime. What in the world is that?
Why, look. It's old Mr. Old Timer.
Hello, kids.
Hey, what are you doing with that horse and cart?
Well, me and Cleo are collecting scrap for the war effort, Sonny. You know, paper, pots and pans, rags, stuff like that.
Well, that's very patriotic, Mr. Old Timer.
Oh, sure is, and they pay me too.
They pay you for that flea-bitten nag?
Hey, be nice. Be nice. You might hurt Cleo's feelings.
Oh, brother.
You might not believe it, son, but once upon a time, Cleo was a famous vaudeville star. Cleo, the Wonder Horse.
Oh my! Cleo the Wonder Horse?
Probably a wonder he didn't fall apart.
McGee, will you quit? Were you part of the act, Mr. Old Timer?
Oh, sure thing. We were both stars, and my brother Calvin, he helped out backstage.
So what sort of act was
Oh, the usual trained horse stuff. Sit up, count to 5. Oh, then we'd take a few turns around the stage, waving. Then we'd stop, and I'd tell Cleo, say your name, and she would.
Cleo!
it? You were telling me people paid money to see this?
Oh, they loved me and Cleo until, well, the one time.
Gosh, what happened?
Afraid so. I told your brother Calvin worked backstage, and you know, Calvin's not always the brightest bulb. Well, we used a whistle to start the act and to finish it. Cleo knew that when the whistle blew the second time, she was supposed to bow and trot off stage.
Sounds like something went wrong.
Yeah, Calvin, I tell you, he can be as dumb as a post. Lost the whistle backstage. Well, it was dark back there, so he grabbed somebody's trumpet and blew on it for all he was worth. And that just spooked the heck out of Cleo. And she started to run around it and jumped off the stage and into the audience.
Oh my! Was anybody hurt?
Nah. Well, kinda, sorta. One bozo in the audience grabbed her mane, jumped on her back, and started yelling, "Hi-ho, silver away!"
Oh no! What happened?
Well, nothing much, until he started kicking her in the sides and yelling, "Giddy up, Silver, giddy up!" Well, that made Cleo mad, so she started bucking. Yep, old Cleo bucked the dude right off into the bass drum. Yep, and he broke the drum and a few other things. And then he got clobbered over the head by the conductor and saw stars and was down for the count.
Oh my gosh, Mr. Old Timer. What happened to Cleo?
Well, she ran up the aisle, out to the street, and galloped off. I found her a few hours later munching apples out of an outdoor grocery stand. Them apples cost me $2. I took that out of Calvin's salary.
And I guess that ended your theatrical career.
Oh, we had a few more gigs now and then, but Cleo and me got tired of the bright lights and heard about this, so here we are.
Well, these are definitely not bright lights.
Oh, bright enough for us. We have so long, kids. Don't take any wooden nickels.
Well, now, there's a tall tale for you, McGee.
Nah, wouldn't work.
Why not?
Well, who'd ever believe a story like that?
Oh, heavenly days. Well, look what time it is. Time for the broadcast. Let's go in and turn the radio on, McGee.
If you insist. Not that I want to hear it, except out of morbid curiosity.
Quiet and listen.
And now for the announcement of the first prize winner in the Wistful Vista Writers Club Tall Story Contest. And the winner who will receive a check for $100 is Mr. Fibber McGee of 79 Wistful Vista.
Well, how on earth did you do that?
Mr. McGee's prize-winning entry consisted simply of this brief statement, and I quote, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but I just don't seem to be able to sit down and deliberately tell a falsehood." Well, to anyone who knows Mr. McGee, this will be recognized as the most fantastic whopper of all time. Congratulations, Mr. McGee, and we now return you to the...
I knew you could do it, McGee.
It just goes to show that honesty is the best policy.
And that's the tallest tale you ever told. So long, everybody.
So long.
Be with us again next time, friends, for the further adventures of Fibber, McGee, and Molly. This is Harlow Wilcox speaking for the Johnson's Wax people in Racine, Wisconsin, and Brantford, Ontario. Good night, folks.
Presenting The Gals They Left Behind, starring Susie Hucker and Michaela Mesh on the Cavalcade of America, sponsored by E.I. DuPont de Nemours and Company of Wilmington, Delaware, maker of better things for better living through chemistry. Before we begin our play, here's an interesting news note on how chemical science is helping to solve the food shortage problem for animals. Cattle and sheep need a certain amount of protein in their diets, just as we do. And protein's scarce. Now 262 feed compound containing urea, a product of chemistry, takes the place of this necessary protein in mixed feeds for cattle and sheep. Chemistry is helping to solve this critical wartime feed problem and so bring more food to your own table. And now for our play.
This evening, the Cavalcade of America turns the spotlight on still another aspect of American life in the summer of 1944. At present, our concern is with the home front, which is marching in spirit behind the men who fight. This great army, composed of wives, mothers, and sweethearts of America's men, might as well be called an army of occupation, because they are truly occupied with waiting, working, and praying for their sons and husbands. It is these women Cavalcade salutes in this radio adaptation by Edith Sumner of the just published book by Margaret Shea, The Gals They Left Behind, the authentic experiences of two soldiers' wives.
Here we are, Taffy. Never thought the old car would make it.
Come on, Joe. Let's get out and look at it.
Oh no! Oh no! This can't be Great Aunt Het's farm.
She didn't like it, maybe, and willed it to you as kind of a grim joke, maybe.
It's funny, Taffy, but it didn't look like this when I was a little girl. Then I thought it was wonderful. It always smelled of gingerbread and piccalilli and geraniums with a little spicy dash of cow and clover floating in from the barn.
And now it just smells.
The house does lurch a bit, doesn't it?
Lurch? Joe, it's a dump, that's what it is. A big, horrible old dump, that's what it is.
And that, dearest Bill, is what it was. Of course, I'll write you more when we get settled. But right now, the big news is Taffy and I have arrived in Hostroff, Maine. This morning, bag and baggage, Taffy's harmonica included. It's a cinch, darling. Manhattan was never like this. But then you probably felt the same way when you and Hank arrived in New Caledonia. It's a far cry from our little apartment on 61st Street, Bill, because, well, you know what I mean. But I couldn't let Taffy know how I felt when she said,
Joe, it's a dump, that's what it is. A big, horrible old dump.
"See here, Taffy Smith, you're homesick for Hank. That's what's the matter with you, and that's all that's the matter. Oh, now stop crying, because if you don't, I'm going to start."
Hey!
What's that?
A bird?
Oh, singing? Oh.
There's not another human being within miles.
Boo!
Oh my.
Well now, you ain't ones for courage, are ya? Too much city living, I reckon. I take it you're the women folks that's gonna take over this here Perkins place?
That's right. And who are you?
Either of you kin of that old hellcat?
Certainly not.
Which Hellcat?
Het Perkins, that's which. Yeah. Old Het kept me in land courts all the time with them boundaries of hers. And if you got any of her blood, little lady, you better get stepping back down south where you come from.
Yeah. Your name, sir?
Ma'am, my name is Hod Clough. I didn't mean to scare you girls none, but...
Well, you certainly did. Now, wait a minute, Taffy. I know I'm a jerk to bring it up, but it occurs to me that you are on our land, Mr. Hod.
The name is Mr. Clough.
Well, Mr. Clough. And another thing.
Oh, all right. Might have known I couldn't beat nobody that's kin to old Het. Great old lady she was. She could spit words further than I could spit my tobacco. See what I mean? Well, good day to you.
Bye.
Now, if you need anything and you're waiting long enough, I'll probably be by to help you out. Sooner or later, maybe. And by the way, I wouldn't use your well water was I you, at leastways not the way it is.
Why not?
Got a muskrat in it.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I'll throw it in myself.
Oh no.
Well, I didn't know you was a-coming.
But what'll we do? We can't drink water that's got a muskrat in it. It's dangerous. We might get hurt.
No, ma'am. That muskrat won't hurt you. He's dead.
Oh, look now, Joe. This is insane.
Now,
We're
wait.
not here 2 minutes and we're already poisoned to death by the well water. Joe, let's go back to New York.
Wait a minute, ma'am. If you just put the boil to that water, it'll be all right. Might smell a mite, but that ain't gonna hurt you. Just put the boil to it. Well, guess I'll be going along. Bye now. Hope you two girls have a nice time here. I don't think you will, but I hope you do. Yeah, bye.
Goodbye.
But even so, Bill, we'll make out all right, I think. But darling, we've got rooms crammed with Boston rockers, old calendars, marble-topped commodes, and not a Fifth Avenue bus in sight. These are facts, my darling, not complaints. Oh, I meant to write you such gay and dashing letters. starch in my stiff upper lip. I miss you, your Joe. P.S. Before we went to bed tonight, Taffy and I paid a visit to our well with a pitchfork, and we buried the muskrat in the front yard. I just thought you'd like to know. Joe.
Joe? Joe, you asleep?
Mm-mm.
Me either. Moon's in my eyes.
Well, turn over.
Doesn't do any good. Gosh, the night's so soft and warm and mellow. Your Aunt Het's bed's so big. So's Hank.
What?
Big. He's big. I bet my husband's the biggest, strongest man. Joe?
Huh.
Know what I'm thinking?
Mm-hmm.
He's been gone so long.
I know, Taffy.
You know, at times like this, being from New England must be a great comfort to you.
For heaven's sake, why?
Because you can be so brave about Bill's being off in New Caledonia, 9,545 miles away.
Think of something else, Taffy, quick.
But I don't want to think of something else. I just want to think about Hank.
Now, Taffy, stop it. You're just being silly. What would Hank think if he knew?
He'd love it.
Oh, Taffy, for heaven's sake.
The trouble with you is you haven't got any heart. I don't think you even care that Bill's away out fighting a war. I don't even think you miss him. Ow, what's that?
What's the matter?
There's something in this bed.
Here, give it to me.
No, wait a minute. It's a pipe. A man's pipe.
Yes, I know. In fact, it's Bill's.
Bill's?
He forgot it when he went away.
Well, I know, but...
He was always smoking it, and now, well, I like to keep it with me as sort of a talisman. When I think I can't stand the thought of his being away another minute, well, I just look at the pipe and remember how Bill smiles and how he kissed me. Taffy Smith, if you laugh or say one word. Joe, now come on, Taffy. No more talking. We've got to get to sleep. There's a lot of work to be done tomorrow, and Joe, what is it?
Would you mind if we held hands? I know it sounds childish, but...
No, I wouldn't mind.
Night, Joe.
Night, Taffy. Dearest Bill, it's April 26th now, and already we've got 12 laying hens, a dog, a cow, and a little girl. The dog's Amy, a lovely dog. She's deaf, poor thing, but it's all right, she doesn't know it. Now Eloise, the little girl, well, that's another proposition. She's 9 years old, and her favorite author is Edgar Allan Poe. She's the offspring of Doris and Jake Ware, both overseas. So we have Eloise, who does needlepoint, reads editorials in the Times, and loves to improve people. Best of all, she loves to improve people. Why, the first thing she said to me was,
May I try to do something with your hair someday, Mrs. Sullivan? It's so unfair the way you do it.
You see what I mean? But we're having a fine time, though. Taffy plays her harmonica, and Eloise helps me feed the chickens and scrub the house. And this summer, we'll be eating our own vegetables and drinking milk from our own cow. Oh, Bill, she's such a lovely cow, brown and white, and her name's Rosie. Hot Clough brought her over this evening and showed me how to milk her. Tomorrow morning at 5, I do it alone. I know just how I'll do it. I'll be calm and efficient. First, I shall gently lead Rosie into the barn, and then... Come on, Rosie, come on. That's a good cow. That's it. That's the way. Oh, what a fine, beautiful cow. Come on now. Just a little bit more. A little more.
What do you mean, just a little bit more? She hasn't moved an inch.
Well, I'm trying to make her think she has.
Oh, Joe.
If you and Eloise would stop giggling at me, maybe I could think of something. As it is, you both just stand there.
If it was I, Mrs. Sullivan, I'd offer her something to eat. Seems logical she'd follow you then.
Eloise, you're terrific. Look, Rosie, here's some nice pieces of feed. Come on, you brown and white prima donna. Get going.
Look, Joe, she's moving. Atta girl, Rosie. Eloise, you're an angel.
Oh, not at all. It was only logical.
Okay, Joe, Rosie's all set. You ready?
Yes, I think so. The three-legged stool, the pail, the warm water. Yes. All right now. Quiet, everybody. Eloise, begin.
How to milk a cow. Chapter 1, page 3.
Go on, Eloise.
The first step in successfully milking a cow is to wash it with warm water.
You mean all over?
Oh, Taffy, for heaven's sake. Go on, Eloise.
Recently, a new method for milking has been innovated. Experts now advise you to complete the task within 4 minutes. This is because of the inactive condition of the hormone on the back of the 4th minute.
Eloise, what do I do right now?
For the neophyte, it is advised that the thumb and index finger of each hand be used. The steady pressure is also advised. Now,
Tell me that again, now, slowly.
For the neophyte, it is advised that the thumb and index finger of each hand be used. A steady pressure is also advised.
Nothing's happening. I'm doing it and nothing's happening. Last night it worked all right. I don't understand.
Oh my gosh, Joe, look at Rosie, she's dying.
Just keep calm, Taffy. You've got to keep calm. She's not dying, she's sneezing.
But you're hurting her. Don't pull so hard. Joe, look out the pail.
To wit, the cow, on no account should the cow be excited during milking. Am I going too fast for you?
Eloise, I've stood just a...
Joe.
Oh, all right. But don't just stand there. Help me up.
Okay, here. Listen, Joe, Rosie doesn't look right. I think she's gonna charge or something. Her eyes are red, Joe. Maybe she's part bull.
Taffy, where's your harmonica? Get it out. Hurry.
But why?
Never mind. Just get it out and play something. Anything.
Oh, now look here, Joe.
Taffy, this is a matter of life or death. Now play.
Well, if you want.
It's working. I think it's working. Go on, Taffy. Go on. Taffy, she's milking. Rosie's milking.
Well, of course she's milking. It's only logical, as the book says.
Eloise,
Yes?
come here a minute, dear.
If anybody had asked me, I could have told them that the music has a mesmerizing effect on animals. And I could have told you that it was the only... You spanked me.
Well, forgive me, Eloise, but it seemed so darn logical. Come on, Taffy, strike up the band.
You are listening to the gals they left behind on the Cavalcade of America. Joe Sullivan and Taffy Smith, the gals they left behind, have given up New York City for an old farmhouse in Maine. So far, they have learned to cope with chickens, milk a cow, and grow vegetables. As our cavalcade play continues, Joe and Taffy and their ward for the duration, 9-year-old Eloise prepare to meet the new year and the problems it will undoubtedly bring.
Dearest Bill, it's New Year's Eve. Taffy's over by the stove playing her harmonica, and I'm trying to put down on paper thoughts that, well, don't waste a penny on them, dear. They're all yours. We're 3 lonely old women up here, Eloise, Taffy, and I. But we've done all right, I guess. Our cellars stocked with food we've grown and canned ourselves. We have 12 hens, a dog, and Rosie the cow is about to have a calf. I don't want you to worry about us, Bill. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. Except it is very lonely for Corporal Sullivan's wife, not having Corporal Sullivan.
Joe? Joe?
What's the matter? Hasn't he come yet?
No, not yet. How is she?
Oh, she's all right, I guess. It's so cold, though. It's 30 below. I'm
Really,
afraid.
don't think about it. Is she comfortable?
Would you be?
No, of course not. Poor thing, I wish there was something.
We've done everything we can, Taffy. She's in the back parlor, the warmest room in the house.
In the back parlor? But where are the hens?
They're upstairs.
Oh, I wish Hod would come. Everything's ready. I have every pan in the house filled with hot water. I wish he'd come.
Don't worry, he'll come.
Did you say you took the hens out of the parlor?
Yes, they're up under your bed.
All 12?
Plus one egg. It was warm in the parlor.
That's nice. Where's Eloise?
Asleep.
And the dog?
Asleep with Eloise.
Where is Hod?
Stop it, Taffy.
Oh, Joe, I just feel like it was me having the calf.
Taffy, you mustn't get excited. Cows have calves every day. Just remember, every cow is somebody's mother.
Oh, well, hello there.
Oh, Hod, thank the Lord you've come. We've been so worried.
Hey, now, slow down a minute, so the body can get this dead-burn parka off of here. Now, what's troubling you ladies?
It's Rosie.
What's wrong with Rosie?
She's having a calf.
Oh, bleeding angels of mercy. If I ain't gone and left my chewing tobacco at home.
But Hod, Rosie's having a calf.
You don't say. What's all them buckets of water doing on the stove there?
They're for the birth.
Or what?
Well, in the movies, they're always using a bunch of hot water.
In the movies.
Don't you laugh at me, big piece of cheese. How can you stand there being all happy and gay when at this very moment our cow hovers between life and death?
Life and death. Hogwash, listen. Without no help from me, Rosie will produce a full-grown bull. That's the kind of luck you darn fool women have. You two straw heads come up here not knowing a tadpole from the hind end of a whale. You plant enough garden for half a county, and I'll be darned if a single cutworm bothered to eat one of your cabbages. Such confounded luck, no rhyme nor reason.
But we read books on all those things.
Books. Why, I bet you a cord of good wood, oak, if you was to feed them hens of yourn caraway seed, they'd lay loaves of rye bread for you, spiced and wrapped up in celery pane. Luck, that's all it is. Just plain, simple, unskilled luck. And another thing.
Wait a minute.
What?
Rosie.
Oh yes, we forgot about Rosie. Oh, hurry up, Hod. Maybe she's right under here.
Well...
Hurry, please hurry. If anything's happened to her, I'll never... Why, Rosie, you old angel.
Would you look at that now? Can you beat it? Two of them.
Twins. Isn't it wonderful, Taffy? Rosie's had... Hey, wait a minute. Can a cow have twins? Dear Bill, it's January 13th and our luck, as Hod called it, has run out, and so has Taffy. It all started several days ago. It's been around 40 below ever since the calves came New Year's Eve. And the day before yesterday, we were all in the kitchen when suddenly Taffy burst out,
Joe, I can't stand it. I can't stand it another day. Cows in the parlor and hens under my bed. The whole world frozen. Joe, I've got to get back to Atlanta. I've simply got to get back to Atlanta. Do you hear me? Joe, do you hear me?
Taffy, I need a bucket of water from the well. Would you get it for me?
I can't. There's no water in the well. It's ice. 10 solid feet of ice. How can you expect water from the well when it's 40 below? How can you expect...
A bucket of snow, Taffy. Get a bucket of snow.
Didn't you hear what I said? Didn't you?
Taffy.
Will one bucket be enough?
And that was the start. Yesterday, not a word was said. But this morning, Taffy turned up all dressed, ready to go out.
Joe, I'm sorry.
Taffy, don't go.
I've got to. I'm sick. I'm really sick, Joe.
Sure, you're sick. You've got a bad case of cracked morale. That's what's the matter with you. But stick around, Taffy. It's not a fatal disease.
I see no reason for being flippant. I'm not proud of not being able to stand the cold. It took a lot of things in the beginning, if you remember. So many times when I cheered you up.
Well, how about a smile for me now?
Joe, you're insufferable. The trouble with you is you like to see people miserable. You like to see them agonized, tortured.
Wait a minute, Taffy. The world is full of people like you. The ones who won't pay the asking price. The ones who want a band playing while they work. So the novelty's gone from the kerosene lamps, has it? The novelty of playing the gay young heroine has departed. All right, go home. Go back to Peachtree Lane, to the magnolia blossoms. That's right, go on.
It's all right. You mustn't cry. Don't cry, Joe, please. Joe, please don't cry.
So, Bill, Taffy's been gone for over an hour now. She marched out to the barn with her little bag and her head in the air, and Eloise and I are quite alone. We'll make out all right, I'm pretty sure. After all, I'm strong and healthy and capable, but I'm so lonely. I should be able to manage, but...
Hello, Joe.
Taffy?
Car got stopped.
It did?
Down by the bridge. I tried though, Joe. I really tried. I don't want you to think that...
I know. You cold?
Oh, no,
It's all right, Taffy. It's all right.
No, listen, Joe. I just got frightened and, well, I guess I ran for cover. But now, Joe, may I come back?
Taffy, you know what I was thinking? It seems to me that we'll want to paint the house in the spring, don't you think? I was just wondering how a nice even gray would be, with blue blinds, say.
I think that would be very nice, except...
Except what?
Well, don't you think a lovely white with green blinds would be better?
White and green? Oh, I think that would be wonderful, Taffy. And then if we have any green left over, we could paint flower boxes.
Yes, if we have any green left over, we can paint the flower boxes.
And if we have any white left over, we could paint them, you know.
Oh, sure, we can paint that too.
So, my Bill, here we'll stay. And we'll keep poking at the fire and hoeing the garden and writing letters. Common, ordinary stuff. It's nothing to shout about. But when the bells ring and all the whistles blow and your ship comes steaming up the harbor, soon, my darling, very soon, we'll be there in a gay and handsome bonnet, our arms wide open. And then I'll take you back to Hostroff for a swing in the hammock. And I'll feed you a bowl of raspberries, yellow with Rosie's golden cream. And you'll think what a lucky girl I've been all along. And oh, darling, you'll be right. I love you, Bill. Joe.
Thank you, Susie Hucker and Michaela Mesh. In the final scene of our cavalcade this evening, the two gals they left behind were planning to paint their farmhouse when spring came. And in real life, that's probably just what they do. A clean new coat of paint, inside or out, does make a house more cheerful. The hardest job for all the women of America who are waiting so gallantly for the men to come home is keeping up their own spirits, their own morale. Taffy, in our cavalcade play, said she liked the white paint. The DuPont company makes a white paint that has special advantages for a farmhouse in Maine or a bungalow in California. It actually part played by dogs in this war. Our play is the humor-filled account of an unpredictable collie named Joe, who gold-bricked in training, but became a hero in battle. This is Roland Winters sending best wishes from Cavalcade's sponsor, E.I. DuPont de Nemours and Company of Wilmington, Delaware. The Cavalcade of America came to you from New York.
Ladies and gentlemen, Easy Aces.
Well, first I want to say that the leading characters in this story are not fictitious. Very often, I wish to heaven we were, especially Jane's brother. Although Paul is allergic to work and is the laziest guy I know, I must admit he is obnoxious. Paul never shows it, but I know he hates me.
I never show it, but I hate him.
He can't stand the sight of me.
I can't stand the sight of it.
Behind my back, he calls me names.
Communist.
12 years ago, Paul was in a little automobile accident. He's been collecting $10 a month on an insurance policy. If he ever goes to work, they'll stop paying him that big annuity, so he can't work. Paul was lucky enough to have escaped alive, and now he wants to be paid for it, robbing St. Peter to pay for Paul. The one I'm really sorry for is Paul's wife, Arlene. They've been married 10 years and always been destitute.
I have been married for 10 years and have always been destitute.
She never has any new clothes.
I never have any new clothes.
She's too old to go to work.
I never have any new clothes.
How do they live? Well, you've heard of people who live by their wits. Paul lives by his wits. Of course, if that's living, it's only half. The other half, Jane takes care of. Jane and I are the typical average married couple, living in the typical average little eastern town, New York City. Population 8 million, give or take one. And if you're going to take one, take my brother-in-law. Or for that matter, take Jane. When Jane makes up her mind to do something for Paul, she does it.
When I make up her mind to do something for Paul, I do it.
She's completely uninhibited.
I'm completely uninhabited.
And her arguments are always unequivocally irrefutable.
Yes, they are.
I should have suspected something the day we got married 15 years ago. The day Paul asked if he could come along on our honeymoon. And I said no. And Jane said,
Let him come along, dear. He's never been on a honeymoon.
and I should have suspected the other night after dinner when Jane and I were sitting around the living room and she gave me her guess who routine. It went something like this.
Well, dear, guess who called me up today?
Rock Hudson?
No.
I give up.
My brother, Paul.
Oh, how much did he want this time?
Oh, he's fine. Arlene's fine, too. Do you know that next week they will be married 10 years? My, how time flies. It seems like only a year ago they were married 9 years. Well, when he told me 10 years you could have knocked me down with a fender, I said, Paul, you mean to say you've been married to... Now, just a minute. What did you mean by how much money did he want? Who said anything about money?
Oh, then he didn't want any money?
Who said he didn't?
Well, which is it?
$200.
Jane, I'm not going to give it to him. Why doesn't the guy go out and work?
Oh, now dear, you know there are many reasons.
I'd like to hear them.
Well, the third reason is because he always has...
Wait a minute. What happened to win and place?
Beg pardon?
What are the first two reasons?
First, because he was sick last year. You know, he was just about to get a job when he got the intentional flu.
I knew you'd finally come up with the right word.
And besides, like Paul says, what's the dollar worth today? Practically nothing.
Oh, so he's not going back to work until the dollar gets back to what it should be worth?
Yes, 57 cents.
Of course.
Well, we talked it over, and Paul decided to come to your office tomorrow morning. I told him.
Jane, I haven't got $200 to throw away.
Are you insinuating that my brother isn't going to pay you back?
Oh, no, of course not. He's as good as gone. Gold. As usual, as in any argument with Jane about her brother, I ran second and paid $2.80 to place. Because the next morning when I got to my office, oh, I ought to tell you this. I work in the advertising business, make a nice living. It's a pretty fair job. Of course, Jane always exaggerates my importance there by telling everybody I'm a big cog in the machinery.
He's a big clog in the machinery.
The only thing I can't stand about the job is my secretary, Miss Anderson. Why don't I get rid of her? She's Jane's cousin, twice removed. That is, I removed her twice, but Jane got her job back 3 times. The score now 3-2 in her favor. Miss Anderson practically runs the office her way.
I practically run the office my way.
Oh, she's a doll. D-U-L-L. So I got to my outer office about 9:30 the next morning, and I asked Miss Anderson if there had been any calls.
Yes, Joe Davis called.
Joe Davis? Who's he? What did he want?
He wanted a date for Saturday night. I told him I was going to the movies Saturday night with Bill Wilson. So I gave him Wednesday night. We're going dancing. Joe's an awfully good dancer, much better than Bill.
Miss Anderson, were there any sideline calls? I mean, for me? The advertising business?
Let me see. There was somebody. Who was it now?
Isn't that awful? If the thought comes to you, Miss Anderson, you'll be in touch with me. I'll just go into my office and wait.
Oh, sure. I'll let you know if it comes to me.
Well, there you are. Is that a nice thing to do? Keep your brother-in-law waiting in your office to see you?
Miss Anderson, is this the,
Oh, yes, that's it. Your brother-in-law is waiting in your office to see you.
Miss Anderson, take a letter.
A letter?
To China. Don't hurry back.
Well, brother, how's the world treating you?
Not very often.
I haven't seen you in some time. How long has it been?
About $25 ago. Paul, would you mind taking your overcoat off my desk?
Oh, sure. Excuse me. Recognize the overcoat?
Yes, I recognize it.
You gave it to me 2 winters ago, remember? Lucky we're the same size.
I was born lucky. Look, Paul, Jane tells me to give you $200. Is that right?
Not give, lend. Watch your language.
Sue me. The answer is no.
Oh, now, wait a minute, brother. It isn't for myself I want the 200. It's for Arlene. We have a 10th wedding anniversary next Wednesday, and I want to get her something she needs pretty bad.
For $200?
Yes.
Like what?
I'm getting her a tonsillectomy.
You're going to have your wife's tonsils removed as an anniversary present?
Why not? It's something practical.
Something she wouldn't buy for herself.
Yeah, that's it. How about it? Let me have the 200?
No.
Well, could you make it 100?
Gonna have one tonsil out?
Yeah. No. I could pay 100 down.
And get the rest from me later. Nothing doing. I can't afford it. It's not the principal, it's the money.
But I'm going to pay you back. I keep track of every cent.
I'm sorry, Paul. And look, if you come to my office and sit around with your feet scratching up my desk, I wish you wouldn't be wearing my shoes. With my no ringing in his ears and my overcoat hanging on his back, Paul walked quickly from my office to my home in my shoes to see my wife. Before we look in on this tender little scene, I ought to tell you that, like the typical average family, we live next door to a radio announcer, a fellow named Ken Roberts. Ken is the only celebrity Jane knows, and every time he comes to the house, which is about once a day, Jane gets his autograph. Ken loves it. So before Paul got to the house, Ken was visiting with Jane.
Hey, Jane, that's an attractive dress you're wearing today.
You do? Thanks. And may I return the compliment and say it's one of my favorites, too. Where you been, Ken? Long face, no see.
Jane, are you home?
Oh, it's my brother, Paul. Yes, Paul, we're in here. Hello, Paul.
Sis, I was just over talking to that husband of yours.
Oh, just fine. Oh,
Oh, you remember Ken Roberts, don't you, Paul?
Oh, sure. Hi, Ken. Well, Janie, he turned me down. My own brother-in-law wouldn't lend me $200. I've got to have that money, Jane. You've got to help me.
Paul, you know I'd give you my button shirt, but I haven't got $200.
What kind of a town is this? Isn't there any place a fellow can borrow $200?
Well, this may be an idea. One of the commercials I do is, friends, do you need money? Come to the Confidential Loan Company. You can borrow up to $300 on one signature alone. Every transaction is treated most confidentially. Paul, why don't you go down there and borrow the money?
The Confidential Loan Company? Yes, I never thought of that. How about it, sis? Will you sign my note for me?
Oh, sure, Paul. I'll go down to the loan company with you. I'll be ready in a jitney.
So Jane and her brother Paul decided to go to the Confidential Loan Company to borrow $200. All this I didn't know. But as the crime was reconstructed for me later, Jane and her brother arrived at the loan company, and Jane, as usual, took charge.
How do you do? I'm Mrs. Ace.
How do you do, and what may I do for you?
We'd like to see some of that money you advertised to lend. What is your name?
See some?
How do you do, Mrs. Seesum?
How do you do?
This is my brother, Paul Sherwood. This is Mrs. Seesum, Paul.
How do you do, Mrs. Seesum?
No, I'm Mrs. Wilkerson.
You said Seesum.
No, you said see some.
No, Mrs. Seesum. I said, what is your name?
My name is Wilkerson.
How do you do? I'm still Mrs. Ace.
How do you do?
And this is my brother, Paul Sherwood, still.
How do you do still? Now, madam, did you say you want to borrow some money?
Please, Mrs. Seesum, not so loud. It says confidential. Are you the confidence woman I want to see?
I'm Mrs. Wilkerson, in charge of loans. Have chairs, please.
Thank you. Sit down, Paul.
Is this your first loan with our company, Mrs. Ace?
Yes, it is. Why? Your advertisement doesn't say experience necessary.
No, I mean, have you an established credit here? What is your full name, please?
Jane Ace. Mrs. Jane Ace.
Mrs. Jane Ace.
How do you do?
How do you do? I'm Mrs. Wilkerson.
Yes, we've met. And this is my brother, Paul Sherwood.
How do you do, Mrs. Seesum?
I've met your brother, and my name isn't Seesum, it's Wilkerson. Now, how much money do you want to borrow, Mrs. Ace?
Please, Mrs. Wilkerson, if you're going to keep talking that loud, I'd rather see Mrs. Seesum.
There is no Mrs. Seesum. I lend the money. How much do you want?
$212.75.
$212.75? That's rather an odd amount, isn't it?
Well, the 200 is for me. I'm getting my wife a tonsillectomy for an anniversary gift.
Yes, and on the way down, I saw a sale on hats for $12.75. So I thought we might as well kill two birds with one loan, you see. Well, Mrs. Wilkerson?
Just a minute. You, sir, are getting your wife a tonsillectomy as an anniversary gift?
That's right. I'm not working right now, and this money will come in pretty handy.
And I'm going to sign the note for him.
I see. He isn't working, and you. And what is your business, Mrs. Ace?
Sister to the defendant.
What's that?
I'm his sister, but I haven't got any money to lend him.
Then what good is your signature on a note?
What good? Well, I don't know who would sign for a person if his own sister wouldn't. And if I'm wrong, I'm not far from it.
Your what?
Doesn't it to you?
Oh, let me see. What happened? I was sitting here in my office, quietly reading Dick Tracy, when she came in and said he wanted to borrow $212.75. And she wants to sign the note, and she has no security. Do you have a charge account in any of the stores, Mrs. Ace?
Oh, sure. But I wouldn't want them to know about borrowing this money.
Just a minute. I'll call upstairs and check your credit.
Yes, Miss Martin speaking. Over.
Miss Martin, this is Wilkerson. I have Mrs. Jane Ace here who wants to borrow $212.75. Will you check her credit for me?
Mrs. Jane Ace wants to borrow $212.75. 75 cents. Over.
Fine, confidential.
That's right, Miss Martin. $212.75.
That's a rather odd amount, isn't it?
Well, 200 is for a tonsillectomy her brother is giving his wife for a wedding anniversary.
Testing 1, 2. Testing 1, 2. It sounded like you said he's giving her a tonsillectomy for a wedding anniversary. Over.
That's right, Miss Martin. And the other $12.75 is for a hat she saw on clearance sale on the way down here. Check it, will you, Miss Martin?
Will do.
Roger.
Mrs. Wilkerson, was that coast to coast?
What? Oh, that's our efficient credit system, and it only takes a minute, and while we're waiting, we can look over this application. Here are the weekly rates for a loan of $212.75. You'll have to pay back $4.40 a week for 1 year.
$4.40 a week? That's reasonable.
There's Miss Martin again.
This must be the repeat broadcast from the West Coast.
Yes, Miss Martin?
Mrs. Ace's NG. All charge accounts are in her husband's name. He's okay. Over.
Roger. Thanks, Miss Martin. Over and out. Sorry, Mrs. H. You're NG.
What's that mean? Not guilty?
Yes, no. It means your signature is not acceptable. But if your husband will sign this note, we'll make the loan. Take the application and have him sign it.
Well, okay, I guess we'll have to do it, Paul.
But he'll never sign the note, Jane.
Just leave it to your Uncle Dulcie. We'll see you later, Mrs. Seesum.
As Jane and Paul sailed out of the confidential loan company, they waved a fond farewell to Mrs. Wilkerson, sinking slowly in the west. If you were a betting man, wouldn't you give 100 to 1 I wouldn't sign that note? Save your money. A few minutes before Jane and her brother got to my office, I had a visit from my boss's wife. That would be Mrs. J.K. Norris, of Dutton, Sutton, Mutton, and Norris. I don't know how she got in there. Mrs. Norris talks like a copybook. She believes that a man's best friend is his motto.
Don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today.
She's been married 3 times.
If at first you don't succeed, try again.
But in spite of her corny talk, I like Mrs. Norris. She's a lonely woman, has no children.
If at first you don't succeed.
Yes. As I was saying, just before Jane and Paul got to my office, Mrs. Norris had come rushing in, quite pleased, with an advertising idea I thought up for a new account we were going to handle.
Mr. Ace, my congratulations on that advertising campaign for the new account, the Confidential Loan Company.
Well, thank you, Mrs. Norris.
I knew when you and Thompson got together you'd turn out a great campaign. 2 heads are better than 1, I always say.
But I did this one myself, Mrs. Norris.
All by yourself? Good work, Mr. Ace. Too many cooks spoil the broth, I always say.
Yes, you do.
By the way, the confidential loan people are very concerned about the type of man being assigned to their account. They want to be sure you've never signed a note over there on a loan or borrowed money.
Oh, no, I never did.
Good. Neither a borrower nor a lender be, I always say. We had one man who borrowed money from them, speculated in the stock market. You're not speculating, are you? I heard a rumor you were.
It's not true.
That's good. A fool and his money are soon parted, I always say.
Hello, dear.
Oh, hello, Jane. I always say.
Hello, Mrs. Norris.
You're just in time, Mrs. Ace.
Just fine. This is my brother Paul, Mrs. Norris.
How do you do?
Glad to meet you, Mrs. Norris.
Mrs. Ace, I was just congratulating your husband on a fine job he did on one of our accounts.
Oh, it's nothing really, Mrs. Norris.
Nothing, he says. Don't let his modesty fool you, Mrs. Ace.
All right.
I hope you're just as proud of him as I am.
Oh, you are?
Congratulations again, Mr. Ace. This campaign will make you famous in advertising circles. How about it, Mrs. Ace? Your husband's a celebrity.
Oh, now, please.
A celebrity? Dear, I'm so proud of you. It's like having a movie star in the family.
Movie star? I suppose you'll be asking me for my autograph.
Autograph? Yes, that's an idea. Give me your autograph, dear.
Oh, now, that's carrying a joke too
But
far.
dear, you're a celebrity.
I know, but
Go ahead, Mr. Ace. Give your wife your autograph.
But But Mrs. Norris, it's embarrassing.
Here you are, dear, on this piece of paper, right here. Here's your pen.
I feel kind of idiotic. What is this paper?
Go ahead, sign your name.
Okay, all right, here you go. This is kind of silly. Autograph to my own.
That's it. Thanks, dear. Give me that.
Nice work, sis.
What is that paper you gave me to...
Well, Mrs. Ace, let's clear out and give the big man to his own thoughts. Confidentially, I think he wants to be alone. Yes, that's exactly where I'm going. Come on, Paul. See you later, dear.
All I can say in defense of my simpering self is that I have a good alibi. I'm stupid. But I never would have known I even signed the thing if something hadn't happened a week later. Jane and I were sitting around the living room after dinner, and I was doing a little bragging. Jane, remember that advertising campaign Mrs. Norris congratulated me on about a week ago? They gave me a $500 bonus. Pretty good, huh?
Yes, dear.
Is that the most enthusiasm you can work up? I thought at least you'd cheer.
Yippee, dear.
Well, thanks, if you can spare that. Maybe this will brighten you up. I'm going to take 200 of this bonus and lend it to Paul. Arlene does have to have her tonsils out, and as long as I can...
Paul got that money already.
Where?
Last week. But I'll tell you what you can do.
I said, where did Paul get that?
If you want to do somebody a favor, how about increasing my allowance?
Where did Paul get the 200? Increase your allowance? How much?
$4.40 a week.
440. How'd you arrive at that round figure?
Well, I might as well get this off my chin.
Okay, start chinning.
I'll make it short and snappy. Remember last week when I came to your office and you were a celebrity and you signed your autograph on a piece of paper I gave you?
Fine celebrity. Yes.
Well, that day you opened a charge account at the Confidential Loan Company.
Confident? Oh, no.
I'll borrow $200 when you autograph the note.
No.
Oh, yes. And today they called up that Paul missed the first payment, $4.40.
And he's going to miss every other payment, and I'm going to have to make it good.
I should say you won't. What kind of a wife do you think I am? I got you into this, and I'm going to make it good myself. I'll pay it out of my allowance. All you have to do is raise my allowance $4.40 a week.
Look, Jamie, I don't even mind the money now. But when the Confidential Loan Company finds out I signed that note, they'll cancel their advertising account.
Oh, no, they won't, dear. When she saw your signature, she asked me if you're in the advertising business, and I said yes. And she laughed, and she said she was glad to have somebody like you handling their advertising.
Laughed? Glad?
She said she only wished all the other signers they had would be as happy to sign a note as you were.
Who told him I was happy?
She could tell by the way you signed it. She said this was the first time in her experience that a co-signer ever signed a note. Sincerely yours, with all my love.
Isn't that awful?
Tune in again Wednesday for another visit with the Easy Aces. These shows have been brought to you by the National Broadcasting Company.